How long are you going to sing? My arms don't go out.
Well, it's quite an honor to be,
What tape?
quite frankly, to be here, be able to sing you a song or two. But, you know, one of the greatest times I have is talking. And my wife says, John, you talk too much. She's the smartest move ever made, so I listened to her. So tonight, I had a chance to listen to this gentleman right here. Now tell us what your name is, sir.
Mine?
No, this
Yes,
is,
right.
you're a minister, I take it.
No.
Oh, well, okay.
David Bornholt from New Richmond, and I'm a friend of Richard Borgerding and his wife Teresa.
And he's gonna tell his story after you.
Oh, well, good.
So yes.
Well, I was surprised. I was sitting there and I thought, boy, I'm sitting by a very intelligent man. And I said, so I better open my ears up here and listen. And I did listen. And I told him some little stories of life that I've had at 81 years old, soon to be 81, September the 4th. My wife's going to be 72. By the way, she's a Campbell County girl. Smartest move ever made. Every time you turn a rock over in Campbell County, you find another Guyman diamond. She's a Guyman. You ever heard of any of the Guymans? But she's one of 9 children. She's done ladies' Bible study classes all over Lexington, Louisville, Cincinnati, North Kentucky. But she went with me in 1987, and we filmed the history of all 120 counties. In fact, I'm the only live in Kentucky and has been in every single county in the state at least 5 times and filmed the history. And I was your last elected superintendent of education for the state of Kentucky. And taught advanced government and American history and taught the very first black history in a public school in Kentucky in 1969 in Jessamine County and later at Erlanger Lloyd High School. But the song I'll sing for you tonight, the first one, is one I sang for, well, Happy Chandler taught me how to sing it when I was president of the student government at the Northern Community College, the year we got the 4-year college started. And I tell you the whole history of that. It was a battle that Louis Nunn was the governor. The 2 legislators, one of them from Campbell County, one of them from Kenton County. It was Art Schmidt from Campbell County, Phil King from Kenton County. They were the 2 that really led in getting the 4-year college started and authorized. And I was president of the student government at the community college, which was at that time part of the University of Kentucky. And I learned this song from Happy Chandler. He said, son, I'll teach you how to sing it, but you got to sing it from your heart. So I've done that in every county in the state, and it goes like this. Oh, the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the children have played. The corn top's ripe and the meadows are in bloom, and the birds make music all the day. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. Oh, the children roll on the little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by, hard time comes a knocking at the door. Then my old Kentucky home says goodnight. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. Now, if I may. years ago in 1956. I was a very young man, and my mother was a pianist in the church. It was a little one-room Baptist church, you know, down in Kenton Station, Kentucky. You ever heard of Kenton, Kentucky? Well, there was now my memory's not quite as good as it used to be since I had the virus here in Fort Thomas in the San Elizabeth Hospital. But they did save my life 3 years ago with the Trump cocktail. And that's exactly what they called it, and I did a video about it. But back in those days, when I was at that little church with my little sister Judy, I was a teacher and she was a first grade teacher, and later in life. But in 1956, Walter Roden, John Grisell, Vernon Likens, and Carl Copeland, the four deacons, Brother Kerger, the pastor, and his wife Polly, drove an old rickety church bus off the way to Louisville, Kentucky, where Billy Graham's crusade was. And I never will forget, two men taught me a song, two songs. George Beverly Shea and Cliff Barrows, the leader of the choir. And the two songs they taught me were How Great Thou Art and I'd Rather Have Jesus. And Billy Graham taught me this message. He poked me on the chest. He said, Johnny, remember in 1956, I was a little boy. Johnny, it's the Holy Spirit's job to convict. It's God's job to judge. It's my job to love. And he poked me on the chest and he says, and it's now yours and Judy's job to love. The greatest gift God gave us is the gift of love. And we need to love everybody. Red, yellow, brown, black, or white, they're all precious in Jesus' sight. Love everybody. Love everybody. And I've tried to practice that my entire 80 years of life because it's the greatest gift. And I see this room here. Billy Preston wrote a beautiful song and sang it first in his mother's little church. An African-American gentleman who played the organ for Elvis Presley, in case you have forgotten him. But he wrote this song, but it was made popular by Joe Cocker all over the world as a love song. I've sang it for weddings, and I've sang it for ladies, and I've sang it the way Billy Preston wanted it to be sung, because he was the writer. And it goes like this. This very Friday night, tomorrow night, I'll be at the Fairhaven Rescue Mission with the homeless men, and I'll be singing this song to them. And I've done so with Randy Wallace, the minister of Oak Ridge Baptist Church, for 30 straight years, every fourth month. And the song ends like this. You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You're everything I hope for. You're everything I need. You are so beautiful to God. And you are beautiful to God. Never forget it. Never forget it. Smartest move I ever made was marrying my wife, Miss June Diamond Stephenson. I met her in the Charlie McKeever's. You ever heard of that? Over in Fort Mitchell, now called the Public House. The lady comes over to me and she said, Mr. Stephenson, I hope you don't mind, but I've invited somebody to your picnic tomorrow. I said, no, I won't. When she was a little girl, I was with on Breckenridge. I sponsored the girls softball team because they graduated from my high school, Simon Temple. What did I do? I went back and met her. I laid my eyes on her and I said, well, good Lord, invite her to my picnic any day. Strengthen the youth. I thought I'd use my best smooth move, fellas. And I really tried. But I looked at her after talking to her a bit and I said, may I have your telephone number? She said, I think not. And so I said, I reached down and picked up a Charlie McKeever's coaster, drew a map on there, how to get to the house, and the phone number, and that, and I said, now, no strings attached. You come on to the picnic tomorrow. You'll have a great time. Went back and finished my meal, and as I was walking out of that restaurant, I looked over at her, and she looked back at me, and our eyes locked on each other, just like we are right now. And she said right then, when they locked like that, the Lord told her, there goes your husband out the door. And she said, whoa! Guess what? I won't tell you all the whole rest of the story. It's really interesting, but I'll melt it down to this. 4 years later, she married me. And guess where we went on our honeymoon? We got married there in the house in Fort Mitchell. By my best friend who owns a Christian radio station for 32 years, Gil Hammond and Jan Hammond. They were there as witnesses to the wedding. And he was there in the Billy Graham crusade without me knowing it in 1956. Think about that. And he's been my best friend ever since. He taught at Beechwood for 10 years. And went on to be assistant superintendent of education. And we're still best of friends. He'll be at the Right to Life gathering coming up a few Sundays from now, where he'll give the opening prayer. I'll be there filming it. But you know something? The most important thing was that we all need to practice the very lesson of God. I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be His than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or lands. I'd rather be led by His nail-pierced hand than to be the king of a vast domain and be held in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. That's it. See what goes on here. You want to see it on my YouTube channel? I'm probably one of the few 80 years old that has a YouTube channel, 2 Facebook pages with 5,000 friends.
And weren't you also censored at one time too?
Oh, I was censored. And let me tell you something. If I told you my real story of life,
Okay.
and you realize right now just how broke that I am financially, I lost $130,000 helping somebody. And the vultures came in and took it all. And my wife and I now are getting help from different organizations just to keep us alive. But you know who our biggest help is? Jesus Christ the Lord. Because I keep telling my wife, it isn't me, honey, it's God. I've got to depend on God. And that's what we do. It's so great to be here with you tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
3 minutes,
Okay.
promise. What's an Ohio Buckeye doing here with all these Kentucky people? I actually come by that very honestly. My mother was from Mount Victory down in Pulaski County. And just like John, my dad marrying my mom was the smartest thing he ever did. Okay. Richard and Teresa are dear, dear friends of mine. And Richard's father was a TWA flight mechanic on the Lockheed Constellation down at Dayton. So at 7 years old, about that height, Richard actually was going in the back of the Lockheed Constellation with wrenches helping his dad. And so he is aviation and right-wing government down to his toenails. So I had a career as a corporate pilot, and he's the niftiest guy I ever met. He was in the Navy as a technician for 10 years, stationed at the South Pole for 10 years. Pardon me, 3 years. In the Navy for 10 years, South Pole 3 years. So one time he's on these big turboprops. They don't fly the jets much down there. And he's up on there, and a big storm comes up. And how many hours were you stuck in that?
I was up there for about an hour, actually. But, you know, when you're talking 60, 70 below zero, that hour seems a long time. The winds are doing well over 100 miles an hour.
So then he went 10 years in the Air Force, and he actually helped make the Top Gun movie with the F-14s.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, other people recognize his talents and skills. So he was helping me with my little personal plane. And we spent 2 years. But what Richard does is he psychs the plane out. He talks to him. He says, now you know you want that bolt to come off of there.
He talks to planes.
Okay, the other thing is, we have learned that the Republicans like to vote on the election day, but unfortunately, 20% of us have a car breakdown or some other excuse, and we end up not voting. Do the early voting and call 5 other people and tell them the same thing. Democrats have figured this out, but it makes total sense. Okay, Richard and Teresa.
Hold on 1 second, we're gonna share this real quick, and then.
Is the Democratic narrative surrounding January 6th crumbling? Because after the release of never-before-seen video footage from that fateful day, right-wing political commentator Dinesh D'Souza seems to think so.
Here is Scott Adams commenting on what he's seeing. The entire architecture of deceit is crumbling. Feel it. What he's saying is that a narrative, in order to succeed, has got to have a limited amount of facts. And when facts start coming out one after the other, facts that are indisputable, you can see with your own eyes, that contradict the narrative begins to become shaky. And this is, by the way, I'm going to call it to some degree the 2,000 Mules effect, because that's the effect that 2,000 Mules had.
How many see 2,000 Mules?
Safest and most secure election in history narrative. Now we come to the January 6th narrative, and my question is it really crumbling? Let's look at some of the scenes that we are seeing that are out there now on social media. One of them shows a guy who is evidently in handcuffs or restraints, and he comes up to the cops, and they take the restraints off, and then they kind of fist bump him, and they let him go. So the first question is, who is that guy? Is he, first of all, is he a normal Trump guy? Let's just say that he's a Trumpster. He comes in, evidently someone's put handcuffs on him, he goes up to the cops, and they're like, well, there are all these other guys around here, they're not handcuffed, so why should you be? And so it's like, listen, you're not a bad guy, I will take off your handcuffs, and you seem peaceful enough, you don't seem you need to be restrained, and this guy then joins the crowd. So if that's the case, what kind of insurrection are we dealing with?
Well, in case you missed it, last week, House Republicans, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, made over 40,000 hours of previously secret January 6 footage available online for public access.
According to former President Donald Trump, that video is exonerating. He reposted a warning to those who blame him for the January 6th riot. It read, quote, everything you've been told about January 6th is BS. The real insurrectionists are those who framed Trump to try to stop him from ever being president again, and who framed you as domestic terrorists to try to crush America first. They have failed, and they will pay.
So we talked about the new footage the other day. Look, I'm not one who's trying to totally recast the events of January 6th. I think a lot of bad behavior did go on, which was rightly prosecuted,
We know where he
including
stands.
trespassing and breaking of windows and defacing of public property, and people who fought with the police. I have no tolerance for that. I do think, now we've seen, though, a lot of footage, so this new footage shows people calmly walking through the halls. The police are letting them do so. This might be after the protesters had already smashed through, and then other people came through. and I wish we could just like watch all the footage and have it made all publicly available. So now you have to go to the Capitol to view it on like a private telescreen or something. I don't know why we're doing it that way. But they did, they charged some people weren't even there, the Proud Boys leadership, with organizing a terrorist attack on par with like 9/11. They got like 20 years. And so when you see footage of a lot of protesters, not all of them, not saying it's all of them, calmly walking through the halls, escorted by the police or around the police in a way that they're not getting any pushback, they're not being told not to do that, I think it does very much complicate their narrative that we watched a highly organized extremist attack on our Capitol with an actual goal of halting the election, and that it was part of this extremist movement, that it had leadership and it was organized, and there's no more to question or see there. That just, I think, has collapsed.
I don't think it's collapsed, and I would argue that, of course, everyone who was there on January 6th wasn't the people who were climbing on things, taking down flags and piercing at officers and clowning. There were people there who were just holding signs, who were just there. I don't think that narrative was one that was ever really lost. They focused on those who were abusive because those who were abusive and clown were, quite frankly, criminals who were trying to effectively overturn an election. But exoneration here is a very interesting term. We know that Trump used that himself multiple times. It was technically incorrect. And this is not
So we're gonna stop there. So that's just some of the narrative that's coming out. So now that people are seeing the January 6th footage, and I've watched hours of it. I've watched videos, I've watched everything. Their story, this is Teresa, and this is Richard. Their story is incredible, and it was so important for them to be here today to tell you the story, because next it could be us. So if you can stand up and applaud these people for what they're going through. And let me tell you, just wait. These people right here are the true patriots. So Teresa, go ahead. Whoever would like to start first, go ahead. I want you to tell your full story.
I appreciate that. Now, I was going to come here to sing tonight, but he took care of that. And if I start singing, that door would not open fast enough. You guys will be out of here real fast. I'd be here telling jokes, but I was going to be a stand-up comedian. They told me to sit down and shut up, so I couldn't be a stand-up comedian. That's my joke. So anyways, yes, I am Richard Morgan. I've been friends with Dave here for many, many years. Worked on his airplane, and he heard me say a couple of yarns on his airplane. But like I said, I'm the airplane whisperer. And I did 10 years Navy. I started out on F-14s. I did start out with the movie Top Gun, so I was on set for 9 months working on the movie. As my job, putting cameras on planes and make sure the plane's all ready to go for each scene. So then I did 2 Westpacks. Spent a lot of time in the Persian Gulf. I did get injured in the Persian Gulf, and managed to stay in. Spent a lot of time down in Antarctica. Operated deep freeze. I got down there during the winter time, so it was normally around 20, 25 below zero during the middle of summertime. So then switched over to the Air Force, finished up on F-16s, and then retired after 20 years. So I still work on airplanes up in Dark County in north of here in Ohio. Normally it takes about an hour and a half to get here from our house, but tonight it was 3.5 hours. We got stuck. We got stuck in one of the express lanes where you got concrete on both sides. Somebody broke down in front of us, and we couldn't move.
That's why we did other things in between.
Yeah, so appreciate you guys. So, like I said, I'm Richard Morgan. He's my wife, Teresa. And we went peacefully to January 6th, had no clue what was going to happen. No clue. Now, if anybody records this, it's okay, but try not to put it on mass media or anything like that.
I have instructed everybody not to videotape. They're allowed to take pictures afterwards.
Okay, yeah, that's.
They're looking for volunteers to if you feel so called, to help out and fill one of these forms out and mail it in to them. It'd be helpful. I'll take a picture of the whole thing here. so that you have a clear shot of it. Page 2.